all the time with my storage. Hopefully I can redo this now. When the first patrol wagon arrived, Inspector Pine recalled that the crowd, most of whom were homosexual, had grown to at least 10 times the number of people who were arrested, and they all became very quiet. Confusion over radio communication delayed the arrival of the second wagon. The police began escorting Mafia members into the first wagon. To the cheers of the bystanders, Nick's regular employees were loaded into the wagon. A bystander shouted, "Gay power!" Someone began singing, "We shall overcome," and the crowd reacted with amusement and general good humor. Mixed with growing intensive hostility, an officer shoved a transvestite who responded by hitting him on the head with her purse as the crowd began to boo. Author Edmund White, who had been passing by, recalled everyone's restless anger and high-spirited. No one has a slogan, no one even has an attitude, but something's brewing. Pennies, then beer bottles were thrown at the wagon as a rumor spread through the crowd that patrons still inside the bar were being beaten. A scuffle broke out when a woman in handcuffs was escorted from the door of the bar to the waiting police wagon. Several times she escaped repeatedly and fought with 4 of the police, swearing and shouting. For about 10 minutes, described as a typical New York butch and a dyke stone butch. She had been hit on the head by an officer with a baton, for as one witness claimed, complaining that her handcuffs were too tight. Bystanders recalled that the woman, whose identity remains unknown, Storma di Lavori, has been identified by some, including herself, as the woman who accounts vary. Sparked the crowd to fight when she looked at bystanders and shouted, "Why don't you guys do something?" after an officer picked her up and heaved her into the back of the wagon. A crowd became a mob and went berserk. It was at that moment that the scene became explosive. The violence breaks out. The police tried to restrain some of the crowd, knocking a few people down, which incited bystanders even more. Some of those handcuffed in the wagon escaped when police left them unattended, deliberately, according to some witnesses. As the crowd tried to overturn the police wagon, 2 police cars in the wagon with a few slashed tires left immediately, with Inspector Pine urging them to return as soon as possible. The commotion attracted more people who learned what was happening. Someone in the crowd declared that the bar had been raided because they didn't pay off the cops. To which someone else yelled, Let's pay them off." Coins sailed through the air towards the police as the crowd shouted, "Pigs," and "Faggot cops." Beer cans were thrown, and the police lashed out, dispersing some of the crowd, who found a construction site nearby with stacks of bricks. The police, outnumbered by between 500 and 600 people, grabbed several people, including folk singer and mentor of Bob Dylan, Dave Van Ronk, who had been attracted to the revolt from a bar 2 doors away from the stone wall. Though Von Ronk was not gay, he had experienced police violence when he has participated in anti-war demonstrations. As far as I was concerned, anybody who'd stand against the cops was all right with me. And that's why I stayed. And every time you turned around, the cops were pulling some outrage or another. Van Ronk was one of the 13 arrested that night. 10 police officers, including 2 policewomen, barricaded themselves. Van Ronk, Howard Smith, a column writer for the Village Voice, and several handcuffed detainees inside the Stonewall Inn for their own safety. Multiple accounts of the riots assert that there were no pre-existing organizations or apparent cause for the demonstration, but ensued was spontaneous, and Michael Fader explained, "We all had a collective feeling like we'd had enough of it, this kind of shit. It wasn't anything tangible everybody said to anyone else. It was just kind of like everything over the years had come to a head on one particular night in the one particular place, and it was not an organized demonstration. Everyone in the crowd felt that we were never going to go back. It was like the last straw. It was time to reclaim something that had always been taken from us. All kinds of people, all different reasons, but mostly it was a total outrage, anger and sorrow, everything combined, and everything just kind of ran its course. It was the police who were doing most of the destruction, who were really trying to get back and break free. And we felt that we had freedom at last, or freedom to at least standing on your ground for the first time in a really strong way. And that's what caught the police by surprise. There was something in the air, freedom, a long time overdue, and we're going to fight for it. It took different forms, but the bottom line was we weren't going to go away, and we didn't. And we're still not going away. So, in June 29th, 1969, there was another photo that was showing street kids who were the first to fight with the police. And this was in the New York Daily News newsstands on Sunday, June 29th, 1969. The only known photograph taken during the first night of the riot shows the homeless youth who slept in nearby Christopher Park, scuffling with the police. The Machine Society newsletter a month later offered an explanation of why the riots occurred. It catered largely to a group of people who are not welcome in or cannot afford other places of homosexual society gathering. The Stonewall the Stonewall became home to these kids when it was raided. They fought for it. That and the fact that they had nothing to lose other than the most tolerant and broad-minded gay place in town explains why. Garbage cans, garbage bottles, rocks, and bricks were hurled at the building, breaking the windows. Witnesses attested that flame queens, hustlers, and gay street kids, the most outcast people in the gay community, were responsible for the first volley of projectiles, as well as the uprooting of parking meter used as battering ram on the doors of the Stonewall Inn. Sylvia Rivera, a self-identified street queen, remembered, "You've been treating us like shit all these years. Now it's your turn." It was one of the greatest moments in my life. The mob lit garbage on fire and stuffed it through the broken windows as the police grabbed a fire